Hello everyone, what's going on, and welcome back to another edition of Flick News, the show here on FlickDirect where I give you guys the latest happening in entertainment news throughout the week, and then I give you all my personal take on the matter at hand. I'm your host, Austin Punham, and this week was actually kind of a slow week in terms of movie news. However, there is one big thing that happened that was a big bummer, and apparently a film coming on Netflix that's based on a very popular IP. I mean, the most popular or one of the most popular IPs of all. It's been also a discussion on budgets, on just films in general. Let's kick off this week's news show by talking about one of the biggest movies of the entire year, and that is Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, most specifically the box office for this movie. Now, I'm just going to let you guys know right now, I enjoyed Dial of Destiny. I mean, I didn't particularly think that it was a great Indiana Jones film, as I had many issues with the film, but I do think that as an overall film and as a finale for Indiana Jones, it is a solid enough finale. I'm not here to talk about my thoughts on Indiana Jones, the Dial of Destiny. I'm here to talk about the box office. In case if you guys did not know the budget for this film, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny has a budget of, get this guys, at the most $300 million. And yes, you heard me right, guys. It is a budget of, I believe, between $280 to $300 million. And for so far, guys, get this, the film came out in May. Keep that in mind, guys. You would think the box office for an Indiana Jones movie would be rather high, but unfortunately, Dial of Destiny has only made $247 million against a budget of $300 million. And by the way, that doesn't even factor the marketing cost of this movie, which I imagine the marketing cost was huge. And due to this, the film has been able to bomb, and it's not going to even break even. I thought the film was decent. I mean, it wasn't a great film per se. It wasn't particularly I want to say a very good film, but I did think that it was a decent and a solid enough send-off from those beloved characters of all time. It's just a darn shame. Talking about this, I was looking at other video podcasts out there, and I was looking at news on studio budgets and just budgets in general and how films are so expensive to make. Like, for example, Dial of Destiny cost $300 million. The Flash was around $200 to $250. Transformers was just over $200 million. I mean, there are so many films out there that have these big numbers in terms of how much they cost. And unfortunately, the return on investment is not nearly as much, unfortunately. It's made me think, do studios really need to have these movies at such massive, which like for example, I'm not gonna let you guys want to say this, I actually don't think that Dial of Destiny needed the $300 million budget. I mean, sure, I could have possibly made 150, maybe 200 million, but I guarantee cast salaries were a big reason as to why that film had a big budget on top of the sets, the CG, especially the deep fake. It did call a lot of questions into factor of, did this movie really need to be that much? The Flash really need to be $250 million? I mean, don't get me wrong, The Flash is a VFX heavy movie, but there are some VFX that just do not look good. In particular, if you guys have seen the film, the third act of The Flash, the visual effects are not good. Transformers Rise of the Beast, I went to the VFX look bad, as there some of the VFX in that film look darn good. And keep this in mind, guys, the budget for that film is 100 less than Indiana Jones, and also Fast X, a production budget of $340 million, and somehow the VFX actually looked pretty decent. I mean, better than The Flash, which is saying a lot, because there are certain effects I was just like, you know what, for $340 million, this looks pretty freaking good. Do movies need to be budgeted at such high costs? Like, for example, like I mentioned you guys earlier, Indiana Jones, Dial of Destiny, a Flash, a Transformers, or even a Fast X, for example. Do these movies really need this big or these big budgets? And on my end, I don't think so. Do I think that bigger films or some films need these big gargantuan budgets? Absolutely not. And it's a question that I know I'm going to ask you guys later when I end the show. But what do you guys think of these films having big budgets? Do you guys think, honestly, that these films need big budgets? Or do you think that some good budget could be cut away from this? Guys, let us know below. I'm going to ask us later on. Absolutely. One of my most anticipated movies coming out later this year is Zack Snyder's Rebel Moon. Rebel Moon looks absolutely amazing and essentially looks like Zack Snyder's Star Wars meets Dune. Now, speaking of Star Wars, guys, get this. Apparently, guys, get this. Rebel Moon is sort of based on Zack Snyder's pitch that he did for a Star Wars film back in 2012. As I was graduating high school, it was reported that Zack Snyder had pitched a Star Wars film, a much more mature Star Wars film, and an R-rated Star Wars film, which apparently they said absolutely not. And it sucks because I had always thought with Zack Snyder's filmmaking sensibilities and his vision, his creative vision, his visual effects, how cool a Zack Snyder Star Wars film would be. Well, guys, get this. Zack Snyder took the ideas, the story ideas, everything he had made for that pitch, and put it into Rebel Moon, and the result that we're getting here, from what it seems like, it looks like Zack Snyder making the Star Wars film that he never got to make. And you know what? Just for that reason alone, I am so darn excited. Rebel Moon looks like a combination of Zack Snyder's Star Wars meets Dune. And if this movie is as great as these trailers look, we could be looking at such a big IP, a great universe, and the film is being released theatrically along with Netflix, and I'm going to try and see if I can watch this film in theaters, because a Zack Snyder film as big as this deserves to be seen on the biggest screen with the loudest screen possible. And loudest speakers, I meant to say. I need this movie right now. It looks great. Rebel Moon, Star Wars, but Zack Snyder Star Wars. I can't wait to see this darn thing when it comes out. Bring on Rebel Moon. That's going to wrap it up for this week's show. Please comment on us below starting off. How do you feel about Indy and the Dial of Destiny bombing at the box office? And going on to my next point here, how do you guys also feel about studios produce these movies with such big gargantuan budgets? Do you think that these films need these budgets? And finally, when it comes to Zack Snyder describing Rebel Moon, does this make you even more excited about Rebel Moon? Let us know below. I hope you'll enjoy this week's show. If so, please hit that like button, also share, and don't forget the subscribe button and the notification bell for our latest new show goes live. If you guys want to see our previous new shows, please click on the right there or right there. And of course, until next week's new show goes live, we'll see you all next week. Have a wonderful week, guys. Hit like, smash subscribe, and get notified for when our reviews, interviews, and news go live.